particulars, or all people without being. MS. PSAKI. Question. Exceptions, including mainly Muslim Brother. Now the Muslim Brotherhood in the reality on the scene, almost they are not there. Maybe they are in the streets or whatever, but those who can sit and be part of the, even they said they are not ready to do it, any kind of political process. How do you see or how you understand that this political process, inclusive political process, can take place when the realities are changing on the ground? MS. PSAKI. Well, I'm not sure if this is answering your question, so let me try here. Question. Okay. MS. PSAKI. But we've long said that it is challenging to have an inclusive process when there are arbitrary detentions and arrests, and that's why we called for a process for release, because obviously, having all parties partake in an inclusive process includes the Muslim Brotherhood and includes many of the parties who have been subject to arrest. We still feel, and this remains true today, that there is an opportunity, that the window remains open, for a productive, inclusive political process moving forward. We are open to continuing that dialogue. I know that High Representative Ashton has said something similar, and we are hopeful that we can get back on the track to doing that, because we feel that's what is best for the Egyptian people. Question. Yeah. This is your general, this is your principal attitude. MS. PSAKI. Question. But what I'm talking about, the possibility of your attitude or principal position to be applied today on the ground. I mean, is it exactly like when I ask somebody I'm going to meet somebody and he's not in the room ready? MS. PSAKI. Are you talking about the arrests? Question. Muslim brothers. MS. PSAKI. Or people who have been arrested. Is that what you're referring to? Question. Yes, who have been arrested, from the better leader to the other people and people in jail. MS. PSAKI. Question. People in different process. I mean, it's like the main leadership are not there. MS. PSAKI. Well, I think what I just said answers that question, and that obviously, if you're going to have an inclusive process that includes all parties, including the Muslim Brotherhood, it's challenging to do that when there are arbitrary arrests and people remain detained, and that's why we've called for a release. Question. So the other question related to the, maybe somehow to what Saeed was trying to say. MS. PSAKI. Question. Or said already, which is like all these, let's say, announcements or said by the officials in Egypt, not just the military part, even the civilian part. MS. PSAKI. Question. If the transition government, talking about Muslim Brotherhood as terrorists, Muslim Brotherhood so-and-so, and all this political stability instead of fighting terrorism and all these things, do you have any reaction to that, or do you think this is part of the process? MS. PSAKI. The language being used. Question. The language used and the attitudes. I mean, it's not just the language. I mean, it's not. MS. PSAKI. Well, we've, as you know, condemned all violence. We think there needs to be an inclusive process moving forward that includes all parties. I'm not going to speak to every comment that's made, but you are right, our principles have remained the same through this process. Question. Jen. MS. PSAKI. Egypt? Question. Yes. MS. PSAKI. Okay. Question. Do you have anything on the release of former President Mubarak tomorrow? MS. PSAKI. I think we've spoken to this from here. I'm not sure I have much new for you. This is an internal, I should say, as long as we've long said with respect to Mubarak, this is an internal Egyptian legal matter. It's working its way through the legal system there. So beyond that, I would refer you to the Egyptian government. Question. Will anyone from this administration call him tomorrow to congratulate him? Laughter. MS. PSAKI. I'm not aware of a planned call. Question. But isn't it ironic that the elected president of Egypt is actually in prison and seems to be in prison indefinitely, and Mubarak is getting out? I mean. MS. PSAKI. Well, we've spoken repeatedly. I know I have personally spoken repeatedly, and our view on Mr. Morsi, and our position remains the same. Question. Okay. Let me ask you about El-Baradei. Has anyone been in touch with him? Because now he. MS. PSAKI. El-Baradei? Question. Yes. Now he's being vilified and being accused of breaking the public trust. All kinds of accusations there are. Really, I don't think they are. MS. PSAKI. Well, the secretary, and I read this out at the time, spoke with him last week. I'm not aware of a call since then. I know the suit is brought. This is a suit brought by a private individual. But just as we have been clear in our position to arbitrary arrests and detentions, we also do not think Egyptians should be arbitrarily charged and tried. And we think circumstances like this are evidence that Egypt will not be able to move forward if groups of individuals are singled out for having different viewpoints or beliefs. Question. Okay. MS. PSAKI. Egypt, or are we moving on to Syria? Question. Yes, Egypt. MS. PSAKI. Okay. Go ahead. Question. Back to Leslie question. MS. PSAKI. Question. On the EU. MS. PSAKI, sure. Question. The 20 European countries have decided, actually, to restrict exports. MS. PSAKI, Question. In security equipment and some arms while maintaining economic aid, is it something the US welcomes, and is it something the US would be able to do? MS. PSAKI, well, as I've said before, every country, of course, is going to make their own decisions. We are undergoing our own review, as you all know. The President of the United States has discretion under the Arms Export Control Act to determine if the purchase by or delivery of defense articles and services by any foreign nation would be in our national security interest. So that's relevant because that's an applicable comparison to that specific announcement by the EU that was used with, in regard to the F-16s. A decision has not been made, but that is certainly part of the discussion in terms of our aid moving forward. Question. Jen, one more on Egypt? MS. PSAKI, Question. I know you issued some pretty harsh statements against the attacks on Christians in Cairo. MS. PSAKI, Question. But I was wondering if you had anything more to add on the recent reports of up to 212 Christian-owned shops and 73 churches that have been destroyed in Cairo. MS. PSAKI, I don't have anything new. I would just reiterate the condemnation of any violence across Egypt. There's no place for that in Egypt moving forward. I don't have anything new or specific for you. Question. Would you say that is an example of ethnic cleansing? MS. PSAKI, I would not use that term. Syria? Question. On Syria. MS. PSAKI, okay. Question. Jen, in the letter that was made public from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff today, General Dempsey talks about the opposition in Syria, and this building has taken a lead role in that relationship. MS. PSAKI, Question. Between the US and the opposition, both armed and political. And in his letter, he said if asked to do so, the US could significantly increase our effort to develop a moderate opposition. That suggests there's more to be done here. Can you give us a sense of what's actually in track to go to the SMC and to General Idris, who the Secretary has personally met with and voiced his support for? And could you address as well the General's comment that they're not ready to promote their interests and ours when the balance shifts in their favor? Because the Secretary has been very supportive of General Idris. MS. PSAKI, and the Secretary has also been clear that we need to continue to work with the moderate opposition to make sure that they are as strong as possible, both on the ground and politically. I don't think there's anything new in terms of decisions made that you aren't aware of. You may be asking about what has been specifically delivered. Obviously, it has not changed, with the expansion of the scale and scope of aid that we announced a couple of months ago. I can't discuss the specifics of that, and I'm not going to give a laundry list of that. Question. The opposition says they haven't received those items. MS. PSAKI, I don't have anything more specific for you from here on that. Question. Are they mistaken? MS. PSAKI, I just don't have anything more specific for you, given the circumstances. I will say that strengthening the SMC, making sure working with them we speak with them on a regular, if not daily basis, our team does, about what their needs are on the ground, about what they're seeing on the ground, about what aid and assistance would be most useful to them. And it's absolutely a priority of the secretaries to make sure we are working with them on what they need. And as the President has said, as the Secretary has said, all options remain on the table. That, aside from boots on the ground, just to be clear, that continues to be the case. Discussions about what the appropriate steps are ongoing in the administration. Question. But does the Secretary agree with the assessment that the opposition's just not ready, and specifically that the moderate opposition on the ground, not the political opposition, as well? MS. PSAKI, I don't want to do an analysis of General Dempsey's comments. I would refer you to him for that and what he meant and what he was implying by them. I can convey, obviously we know, and we've said many times, that the regime, given the assistance and the influx of foreign fighters from Iran, from Hezbollah, had made some progress. We still don't believe that they can maintain that or keep that over the course of time. That hasn't changed. But the facts are, we have stated that from here in the cust. Continuing to work with the opposition, including the SMC, including General Idris, is a priority of the Secretary's and one that he is very focused on, and he works with his team closely on a daily basis, as well as his counterparts at DoD, as well as the White House, as well as officials around the administration. Question. Has the Secretary spoken to General Idris since this was made public or since these alleged chemical weapons attacks took place? MS. PSAKI. From the alleged allegations from this morning? Question. Yes. MS. PSAKI. No. Question. Has anybody in this building been in touch with? MS. PSAKI. But our team speaks with him on almost a daily basis. I can check with you if there has been a specific call for him, with him today. Question. And when you say the team, do you mean Ambassador Ford, or is that somebody else? MS. PSAKI. Well, certainly he's somebody who speaks with them on a regular basis, but there are a number of officials who work on Syria issues within the administration, as you know. Question. Speaking of which. Question. Do you have any clearer picture on the chemical weapons? MS. PSAKI. Let's let Jill go first. Question. Go ahead. MS. PSAKI. And then we'll go to you, said. Question. Well, coincidentally, I had the very same question. MS. PSAKI. Oh, you're aligned. Question. And I, yes. Amazing. Absolutely incredible. So I presume, we've seen what the White House said. MS. PSAKI. Question. What does the State Department have to say, and what is the State Department doing right now with this push to have the UN inspectors who are on the ground go in and, hopefully, look at where this happened? MS. PSAKI. Well, a couple of things. And let me just reiterate, because I think it's important to the statement that came out from the White House today. The United States is deeply concerned by reports that hundreds of Syrian civilians have been killed in an attack by Syrian government forces, including by the use of chemical weapons, near Damascus earlier today. As a part of that statement, we as an administration, which we, of course, agree with, formally requested that the United Nations urgently investigate this new allegation. As you all know, the UN investigative team is currently in Syria. They're prepared to do so. There have been reports that Sellstrom has been in touch with the regime about this. I don't have an update for you on that specifically, but that's something we're continuing to call for and we'd be very supportive of. And as we've said many times in the past, for the UN's efforts to be credible, we must have immediate access to witnesses and affected individuals and have the ability to examine and collect physical evidence without any interference. Also, as part of that statement, we called for urgent consultations in the UN Security Council to discuss these allegations. My understanding is that meeting has been or is being scheduled for within the next 24 hours, and that's an opportunity to, certainly, discuss these reports and these allegations. Our focus here is, after all of these months of litigating whether the UN team could get in, there's no reason, so this is an opportunity to shine the light on this issue, that the Syrian regime should not allow the UN investigative team into Syria. If they have nothing to hide, they should be providing the team with unfettered access. That's something we will continue to call for publicly and we will convey privately in every opportunity. And the last point I'll make, and there may be more questions, of course, is that there should be no country that stands by or accepts the credible use or the potential credible use of chemical weapons. And every country should be supporting the effort by the UN investigative team to go in and look at as many cases as they can possibly look at. And we believe there's a moral imperative to allow that to happen. Question. Could I follow up? The Russians are saying that this looks like a provocation. They cite the use of chemical weapons on the morning of the 21st, homemade rocket fired by the terrorists, undefined poisonous substance. So in essence they're saying that the opposition forces carried this out. What do you say to that? MS. PSAKI. Well, again, we would support any investigation of any report of credible use of chemical weapons, regardless of the source. But that being said, if there's nothing to hide, the Syrian regime should allow these unfettered access to this investigative team, and any country should support the efforts to do just that. Question. That reference that you had before to any other country should not stand by. Is that Russia? Is that who you're talking about? MS. PSAKI. It's any country. So if there's a country. Question. But there is, Jen. MS. PSAKI. I'll leave you to your own conclusions. Question. Jen, just to follow up on this. MS. PSAKI. Any country. Question. But isn't it? Hasn't it been like a daunting? The track record on the chemical weapons is not only daunting, it's very murky, because every time there is an accusation, then it goes away, it withers away somehow, and it's off the spotlight. How do you independently can confirm or dispel or deny the fact that chemical weapons were used by any party? Aside from the president, the statement on June 13th, there was nothing. Is there anything that you could share with us on this? MS. PSAKI. Well, said, we have since that time been in close contact, of course, with our counterparts. As you know, we've shared information through the process. And for months, and I expressed this at the beginning of our back and forth here on Syria, we've called for unfettered access for the UN investigative team. That's a body who can go in and investigate what's happening on the ground. We want them to have access to as many sites as where there is credible evidence. Certainly this is a report from this morning. If there's nothing to hide, they should be allowed in to investigate what's happening on the ground. Question. Jen. Question. So in Syria the onus is on the Syrian government to prove that it has not used chemical weapons, and not the opposition? MS. PSAKI. Well, the onus is on the Syrian regime to allow the UN investigative team access. Question. Jen. MS. PSAKI. Question. The White House statement didn't mention the red line that the president drew in the past. Is the red line still there? MS. PSAKI. Well, I think we talked about the red line and how it had been crossed a couple of months ago. Now we are focused on, obviously, new reports here. I'm not been in this business long enough not to draw any red lines, so I'm certainly not going to do that today, but our focus is on, as I've stated a couple of times, pushing for, calling for, encouraging in public and private conversations, access for the UN investigative team to look at all credible reports. Question. And why do you think the White House didn't mention the red line? MS. PSAKI. Because they've talked about it. They talked about it a couple of months ago. I'd refer you to them on that specifically. Question. Just to follow up on this particular issue, I have a couple of questions. MS. PSAKI. Okay. Question. Understand it's just to follow up previous question about this red line. So every time there is an alleged use of chemical weapon, that means that the Assad regime crosses this red line again? Or do you have any? MS. PSAKI. Again, I'm not talking about redlands. I'm not having a debate or conversation about redlands, or I'm not setting redlands. Let's talk, not talk about red today. Laughter. I am talking, we've talked about that, we've litigated that, the White House has made announcements about that a couple of months ago. Our focus is on now is looking at all reports, making sure, pushing for the UN investigative team to have access. That's what we think the appropriate step is. Question. Speaking of red line actually, a year ago, laughter. President Obama talked about the red line for the first time when you looked at back here, for a year. Do you think US has been able to use its deterrence? Have the US deterrence dealt a heavy blow by basically not backing what President Obama promised to do? MS. PSAKI. Well, clearly, when we announced a couple of months ago that had been crossed, made announcements about an expansion of the scale and scope of aid and also reiterated the fact that additional assistance, all options remained on the table. That discussion is ongoing. We're looking at events on the ground every single day, just like we look at events in countries around the world. Question, Jen? Question. In this particular White House statement, there is no reference to the Syrian government responsibility. So does it mean that you basically don't know who did it and it could be the opposition or the regime? MS. PSAKI. Actually, there is. I'm happy to read it to you. For the UN's efforts to be credible, they must have immediate access to witnesses and affected individuals, have the ability to examine and collect physical evidence without any interference or manipulation from the Syrian government. Question. But you're not blaming the Syrian government. I just wanted to make. MS. PSAKI. I'm just referencing exactly how it was used in the statement. The onus is on them to provide unfettered access to the UN investigative team. Question. Jen, I wanted to ask you, given it took a while for this administration to consider if they were chemical weapons before. MS. PSAKI. Question. What kinds of things would you be looking at now to feel comfortable in declaring that this was a chemical attack and so on? And number 2, there is a meeting on Syria between Wendy Sherman and the Russians. MS. PSAKI. Question. When is that meeting and will this be discussed? MS. PSAKI. It is next week. The focus is on Geneva. I don't have anything more specifically, but obviously, they'll discuss a range of issues related to Syria. To be completely clear, and just to make sure everybody understands this, we're deeply concerned by reports. I don't have any corroborated evidence at this point. We don't, on the numbers or the use. We're focused on doing due diligence, and we think the UN investigative team is the right mechanism for doing that. So they will be going in. We're hopeful they'll be able to gain access. And in terms of their methods and methodologies, I would refer you to them in terms of how they make a determination. Question. Will Brahimi be at that meeting? MS. PSAKI. The meeting next week? Question. Yeah. MS. PSAKI. I have to check on that. Question. And do you have an exact date for that meeting? MS. PSAKI. I don't yet, but I'll check on that after and see if there's an update on it. Question. You mentioned that the head of the UN team was in touch with the Syrian government. Did he ask for anything in particular? MS. PSAKI. I've seen reports of that. I'd certainly refer you to him specifically. Obviously, gaining access is a part of what all of our focus is. Question. But you don't know if he did, in fact, ask for. MS. PSAKI. I've just seen reports. Question. Can we change topics? Question. No. Question. One more on Syria. Question. Just one more. MS. PSAKI. Go ahead, Jill. Question. On 3. The Russians are giving that date as August 28th. Is that correct? MS. PSAKI. I'll have to check. Question. Okay. MS. PSAKI. I have nothing to refute that. I just didn't have a date coming down here. Question. Alright. Just one more thing, because if you look at what the Foreign Ministry of Russia is saying. MS. PSAKI. Question. Say that these attacks were a pretext for putting forth demands to the UN Security Council to side with opponents of the regime and to subvert, undermine the possibility of convening Geneva. Now, I know that this is very early in the game, but even early in the game, can you make any comment on their understanding of what's going on here? MS. PSAKI. I'm trying to unravel in my head what exactly they meant by that, so let me try. 1. Secretary and Foreign Minister Lavrov have spoken repeatedly and regularly about their shared commitment to Geneva. You know, we have differences of opinion on some issues around Syria, but both the United States and Russia can play a vital role in convening both sides. We are continuing to work on that. That has not changed. That's why we're doing this meeting next week, and a part of their conversation when they had the 2+2 just 2 weeks ago was on this and their shared belief that now is the time to move this forward. In terms of use or being able to go in and investigate that, our view should be one shared by all countries, which is that if there's nothing to hide, then the UN team should be able to go in and investigate all credible incidents. That's what we continue to call for, and we're hopeful that others will agree with us. Question: and what do you expect from the UN Security Council informal meeting this afternoon? MS. PSAKI. I don't want to make a prediction. Obviously, any time that the UN meets, it's an opportunity for important countries to work together and address serious challenges, including, of course, what's going on the ground in Syria. But I don't want to make a prediction of what will come out of it. Question: Jen, new subject? Question: I have. MS. PSAKI. Well, let's finish Syria. Question: one more on Syria. MS. PSAKI. Question: earlier questions about the General Dempsey. In those remarks, General Dempsey also said that Syrian rebels would back U.S. interests if they replaced the Assad regime. Is this your assessment right now? MS. PSAKI. I don't want to do any more analysis. I would refer you to the Department of Defense for what he meant by his comments. Question: sure. Let me ask. MS. PSAKI. And what he was trying to convey. Question: let me ask this way, then. MS. PSAKI. Question: do you think that if the Syrian rebels would win, that would be for the U.S. interests? MS. PSAKI. Well, clearly, we've supported the opposition, the moderate opposition, and we think that it's best for the Syrian people for Assad to go. That has not changed, so our position has been the same. Question: but Jen, on that, like one of three, the premise for Geneva is that both sides can sit down together and the political opposition will be there ready to represent themselves. MS. PSAKI. Yep, you're right. Question: and their interests. So you can comment on what General Dempsey is thinking, but clearly, he disagrees with the assessment of this building, which is that the opposition is ready to even move forward with Geneva. If they can't represent themselves and their own interests, how could they possibly attend a peace conference? MS. PSAKI. Well, what I will say about that is that we continue to work with the opposition to make sure they have a strong, viable representation to attend Geneva. That's part of our conversation with them. It's certainly part of what would need to happen and be determined before we would have a conference. Question: do you reject that assessment of the opposition? MS. PSAKI. I am not going to do any more analysis of General Dempsey. I'd point you to the Department of Defense. Question: but that's not the Secretary's view. It's fair to say that? MS. PSAKI. We are continuing. I don't think this is conflicting here. We are continuing to work with the opposition. Obviously, they haven't announced who would attend the Geneva conference. We are continuing to work with them on that. We think we can get to a point. We think Geneva is the right mechanism, the right opportunity to have this discussion, and that's why we're having the meeting next week with the Russians. Question: Question: do you have any date for the Geneva? MS. PSAKI. I'm sorry? Question: do you have any date for the Geneva that you have been referring to? MS. PSAKI. Well, next week, which is I think what we've been talking about a bit here. Under Secretary Wendy Sherman will be meeting with Russian counterparts to discuss the agenda, discuss a lot of the outstanding issues, so no, I don't have a date. That's part of the discussion next week. Question: as a conclusion, do you agree with General Dempsey's statement about MS. PSAKI? I don't have anything more. Dana. Question: Jen, I just wanted to get a clarification. MS. PSAKI. Question: on the timeline given the question that Margaret asked. MS. PSAKI. Sure. Question: so a year ago or so. MS. PSAKI. Question: President Obama said that use of chemical weapons would be redline. MS. PSAKI. Question: then in June he said he crossed a red. MS. PSAKI. Question: that they've crossed a red line. MS. PSAKI. Question: and that we're expanding aid. MS. PSAKI. Question: and in the last 2 months, the opposition has said we haven't received aid. I understand that for security purposes, you can give specifics. MS. PSAKI. Question: but right now, only, do you have, can you give anything? Can you say that it's in the pipeline? Because so far, you've said that something's happening. But the only people that would be able to verify that too have said that it's not. MS. PSAKI. I just don't have anything more for you on it. I understand why you're asking. That's not what I'm questioning. There's nothing more I can detail for you from here. Question: do you? Question: sorry, Jen, but there were reports, intelligence reports, that say there are 10,000 foreign fighters, and they're not talking about Hezbollah and MS, PSAKI, MMM. Question. Shia groups. They're talking about Al-Qaeda types that have infiltrated into Syria, and we have seen pictures of these using all kinds of anti-tank equipment and so on. MS, PSAKI, MMM. Question. Supplied by your ally, the Saudis, and so on. So the arms are flowing in. Are you talking to them about weapons falling in their hands, about what was talked about, elements that may assume power in Syria in the future? MS, PSAKI, well, certainly, as we've been said from the beginning, we've been concerned about the extremist elements that have affiliated themselves with the opposition. That's why we've taken a number of steps to do everything possible to ensure that the aid is going to the SMC and the moderate opposition. Dana and others were asking me about US aid, so that's what I was speaking to, and certainly, I would never be in a position to speak to what other aid has been delivered from other countries. But as you know, every country makes different decisions. They've delivered and made decisions about different forms of aid to Syria. Question. But what about the US aid to Syria? MS, PSAKI, I don't have anything than what I just said to Dana. Question. Jen. Question. Middle East peace? Question. On Syria? MS, PSAKI, MMM. Question. Okay. Regarding the Geneva II meeting? MS, PSAKI, MMM. Question. Yesterday, I think, the Syrian news agency had quoted Lahdar Brahimi that Ron has been or will be invited to the meeting. Have you heard that now? MS, PSAKI, I haven't seen that report, but I'm not aware of a decision being made. Question. New subject? Question. No, last one? MS, PSAKI, one more on Syria? Question. Can you address the differences still existing between you and the Russians on Geneva II? MS, PSAKI, I don't think I'm going to outline that from here. We've spoken about our position. They speak about their position. That will be part of the discussion. But regardless, Russia is in and play an important role in bringing representatives of the regime to the table, and we agree that the best mechanism for moving toward a political transition would be a conference in Syria, and that's why we are continuing to discuss it. Question. Well, there are a lot of reports saying that the US position on Iran coming or not, the opposition having a unified delegation or not, who will represent who? MS, PSAKI, MMM. Question. It's just wasting time because you're concerned about what the opposition could or would not do in Syria if they win or not. It's just a way of lengthening the conflict. MS, PSAKI. Well, we're not having a conference just to have a conference. We want it to be a vehicle for moving the discussion, the progress on the political transition forward. So obviously, there are challenging issues to work through. We've been pretty clear that we don't feel Iran has played a constructive role. There's been an influx of fighters, Hezbollah and others, in support of the regime. We've made no secret of that, but obviously, the discussion of who would participate and what would be on the agenda is an important component of what needs to be determined before there's a conference. Question. But other countries that are supporting the opposition are invited, so where's the logic here? MS, PSAKI. Well, there are countries that have supported the opposition that have had a stake, but we're still determining some players, the fullest of participation. I think most people understand why there are some challenging issues that need to be worked through, and we're continuing to discuss and work through them. Question. Will Brahimi participate in next week meeting? MS, PSAKI. Well, we, of course, continue to coordinate closely with him. I would refer you to him on his plans. We're in regular close contact with him, and beyond that, I don't have any update on his participation. Question. I thought he said he was not attending. Question. No, he's not. MS, PSAKI. Any more on Syria? Question. Just one single question. MS, PSAKI. Okay. Question. On the line. The reason I am asking, laughter, and many people are asking out there, and clearly is that, if the US still has the same assessment on the red line, that is going to take a game-changing step, or, since it's been a year, if the US has now an assessment and it doesn't consider MS, PSAKI, the announcement we made a couple of months ago stands. That's why we expanded our scale and scope of aid, while we've continued to discuss additional options, why all options remain on the table, aside from boots on the ground.